There is grandeur in this view of life.
Welcome to Evolution Talk with Rick Coast, an introduction to the oldest story ever told.
Most religious people in America fully embrace science. So the argument that religion has some issue with science applies to a small fraction of those who declare that they are religious. They just happen to be a very vocal fraction, and so you get the impression that there's more of them than there actually is. It's actually the minority of religious people who reject science or feel threatened by it or want to sort of undo or restrict where science can go.
That was astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. While Dr. Tyson was specifically speaking about religious people in his statement, it is accurate to say that most people fully embrace science. A recent study published in 2015 by the Pew Research Center does seem to support this. It reports that 79% of adults living in the U.S. say that science has made their lives better. Now, that's a pretty high percentage. It does make you wonder who the 21% are that think science hasn't done anything to improve our lives or why they would even think that. If you want to see the results of this study, go to evolutiontalk.com/Pew. That's P-E-W. But there is something else in the study worth mentioning. While 79% of U.S. adults might have a positive view towards science, the numbers are a little different when it comes to evolution, especially where it concerns the evolution of mankind. Here, only 65% of Americans buy into the concept. That's 2/3. A full third of adults don't. That third agreed with the survey statement that humans and other living things have existed in their present form since the beginning of time. Now, to break the numbers down even more, if we look at the 65% who do accept that life has evolved over time, 24% of those people believe that a supreme being guided it along. It gets even more interesting when you start to dissect the population differently. A 2013 Pew survey asked white evangelical Protestants whether they believed that humans evolved over time. Here, the numbers are flip-flopped. Only 27% believe it. 64% said that humans and other living things have existed in their present form since the beginning of time. It's those numbers, the 64% of white evangelicals and the 31% of the entire population who reject evolution, that Dr. Tyson is referring to when he says that a small fraction feels threatened by science. And they are vocal. So much so that it's safe to say that everyone is aware of the argument. We even see it on late-night comedy TV.
My guest tonight is an evolutionary biologist who says that mankind evolved from fish. Great. Now, not only will your grandfather order the scrod, he is the scrod.
Now, Colbert might be in character, but he's basing it on some real arguments out there. The problem comes in when there's a disparity between science and someone's religious beliefs, or even how they view the world, literally. I could tell you that rainbows don't exist, and that if no eyes were here to see them, they wouldn't be there at all. It's an illusion, and a good one. Rainbows are beautiful. You might not believe me when I say they're just an illusion. You believe your eyes, but science would tell you that what you are seeing is the dispersion of light through droplets of water in the sky. It's the way the light reaches your eyes. It's transmitted to your brain and interpreted. You see a rainbow. A different set of eyes might see nothing at all. It's not really a thing. It's an optical phenomenon. Now apply that concept to someone's religious views and watch where things go. Try to tell someone who believes that life has always existed in its current forms and shapes that they're wrong, and watch them dig their heels in. Now tell them that morals, kindness, and cooperation evolved as well, and not only will they disagree, but they'll be very vocal about it. Now tell them that their creation story is allegorical and not fact. This is where science and religion butt heads. But does it really need to? In 1997, Professor Stephen Jay Gould published an essay in Natural History, which also appeared in his book Rocks of Ages. This essay was titled Non-Overlapping Magisteria. It's commonly referred to as NOMA. What Gould set out to do was to step into the ring, separate the combatants, and send them to their corners. For good. But he didn't do this like a parent would do with two arguing children. He did it with reason. Gould drew an intellectual line in the sand.
There's nothing about the factual state of the universe or the history of life that is designed in order to give either solace, moral comfort, or meaning to our lives. After all, life was here for 3.5 billion years before humans ever emerged. Humans are 250,000 years old. Why should life be constructed in such a way to impart meaning to us? In fact, I think Darwin's position was very similar to that. Darwin is sometimes seen as something of a moral midget for holding similar views, but that wasn't his view. His view was that we are all, as moral agents, required as human beings to find and struggle towards moral answers for ourselves. But we're not going to find them in the factual state of nature.
The concept behind NOMA is that science and religion operate in two different non-overlapping realms. Think of two separate circles, or picture two separate circles that seek to explain the world, or even two different sets of eyes looking at a rainbow. Science works to understand the rainbow in physical terms. Someone else might be content to admire its beauty and to marvel at the very fact that it's there at all. Science, according to Gould's NOMA principle, is concerned with cold, hard facts about the world and about life. Religion looks at the meaning surrounding these facts. A rainbow might be an optical illusion, but who doesn't like to point them out to their friends when they see them? Refracted light, or the subtle sweep of a divine paintbrush? Gould said that these two views do not overlap, that they're concerned with two different aspects of reality. When it comes to evolution by natural selection, science explains why the world is as it is. Religion, on the other hand, according to Gould, is responsible for the values and the morals that spring up with it. Science shouldn't cross over into religion's circle, and the same goes for religion. There's no argument to be had. It's only when an attempt is made to cross over that there's a problem. An unnecessary problem, Gould would say. And he's not alone. One of my favorite quotes comes from something that was written 1,600 years ago. Exactly 1,600 years ago. It's from St. Augustine, and it appears in his 415 work, The Literal Interpretation of Genesis. I'm going to read the entire passage, so bear with me.
Even a non-Christian knows something about the earth, the heavens, and the other elements of this world, about the motion and orbit of the stars, and even their size and relative positions, about the predictable eclipses of the sun and moon, the cycles of the years and the seasons, about the kinds of animals, shrubs, stones, and so forth. And this knowledge he hold to as being certain from reason and experience. Now, it is a disgraceful and dangerous thing for an infidel to hear a Christian, presumably giving the meaning of Holy Scripture, talking nonsense on these topics, and we should take all means to prevent such an embarrassing situation in which people show up vast ignorance in a Christian and laugh it to scorn.
I have a feeling that Gould and St. Augustine might be on the same page here, at least when it comes to this. In 1981, Pope John Paul II wrote that any other teaching about the origin and makeup of the universe is alien to the intentions of the Bible, which does not wish to teach how heaven was made, but how one goes to heaven. What's being said here by Gould and Pope John Paul II is that science can tell you how the rainbow was made, but not how you should appreciate it. No argument so far, right?
The most profound insight in the history of humanity is that we should seek to live in accord with reality. Indeed, living in harmony with reality may be accepted as a formal definition of wisdom. If we live at odds with reality, foolishly, then we will be doomed.
That was pastor and writer Michael Dowd. And I agree. A formal definition of wisdom should be to live in accord with reality. A wise person both understands the world around her and appreciates what she's seeing. You can contemplate snow and write a poem about it without taking away from the fact of the snow itself.
The dust of snow. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I'd rued.
Now, we've been talking about NOMA and its assertion that two circles don't overlap. But is this an accurate way of looking at things? Gould might have had grand aspirations to step into the ring to stop the fight, but what about a poem about snow? Or appreciating a rainbow?
Oh my God, it's full on double rainbow all the way across the sky.
Isn't there a bit of overlap there? Can it truly be avoided?
It was a letter to the journal Nature about 2 years ago that pointed this out. Many of us in biology know this very famous quote from one of the great evolutionary biologists of the 20th century, Theodosius Dobzhansky. And Dobzhansky wrote in an article in 1973, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution." It's absolutely true. But the letter writer pointed out in the very same article, Dobzhansky went on, he said, it's wrong to hold creation and evolution as mutually exclusive alternatives. I, Dobzhansky, am a creationist and an evolutionist. Why? Because evolution is God's or nature's method of creation. And Dobzhansky said the Creator made the living world not by caprice, supernatural fiat, I would say not by intelligent design, but by evolution propelled by natural selection.
Here, Professor Ken Miller is offering his take on the subject. The circles do overlap, or at least he's found a way for them to overlap by offering those words from Dobzhansky. Without evolution, nothing makes sense. I've argued before that it can be applied to everything, and not only in the biological sense. Professor Miller and others, such as geneticist Francis Collins in his book, The Language of God, argue that the circles do overlap and that a supreme being is behind it all. They see in evolution an appreciation of God's work, just like 24% of Americans identified in the Pew Research study did. And when it comes to morality and the meaning behind it all, science can have no say on the subject.
Well, that idea of his of non-overlapping magisteria, it was a nice try, but nobody bought it. The religious people didn't like it because he didn't give them any factual authority at all. Basically, he said, forget all your creeds about the origins of the world, forget all your myths. All you have to do, all you're authoritative about is ethics, basically, and the meaning of life, which didn't please those of us who are, for instance, philosophers, secular philosophers. I always thought Steve Gould is remarkably blinkered when he says that.
As you can see, there's no easy answer. What Professor Daniel Dennett takes issue with is the attempt by Gould to move areas of study around and to declare them off limits. Daniel Dennett is a philosopher who has written extensively about consciousness, about evolution and religion. Now, he's not a scientist, and nor is he an evangelical, yet he has quite a lot to say on the meaning of life, morality, and even free will. He would say that the circles overlap in many areas, and he's quite sure others feel the same. So we are left with this. For centuries, our understanding of the world was limited. And to explain it, and to give meaning to our explanations, our early writers did the best they could. Nature appeared to be full of design, and all we had to explain that apparent design was the fact that we were designers ourselves. If we didn't do it, then someone did. Along the way, we sought to understand why the nature that we found so beautiful also seemed to be cruel and callous. There had to be meaning behind it as well. Being the inquisitive creatures that we are, we sharpened our tools and our minds, and we dug in to find that meaning. What we were surprised to find, though, was that there did appear to be a reason for the way things were in nature and in the world. It just wasn't exactly as we expected. We tested what we discovered and found that some of it could be explained. Quite a lot of it, in fact. This was the birth of science. You could say that it all started with Aristotle, but it really picked up steam in the 13th century with people like Roger Bacon, who felt that math could describe the world around us. So they sought to prove it. And then there's Galileo and Isaac Newton, who had no problem applying science to a world they reconciled with their religious beliefs. Try as they might to do so, to reconcile it and to get others to buy into it, those views clashed with what had been written about the world before them. They were revered by those who found the new application of empirical research exciting, but they were reviled by those who found it dangerous to religion. Those feelings and the conflict continues to be the case today. Albert Einstein might have put it best when he said, "Try and penetrate with our limited means the secrets of nature, and you will find that, behind all of the discernible concatenations, there remains something subtle, intangible, and inexplicable. Veneration for this force beyond anything that we can comprehend is my religion. To that extent, I am, in point of fact, religious."
We have to admire, in humility, the beautiful harmony of the structure of this world as far as we can grasp it.
Einstein's circles do more than overlap. It's all one circle. The very fact that we even have the ability to measure this circle, to apply our intellect to its diameter, is in itself amazing.
It's like if you could sit on the moon for the last, say, 200 million years and watch the moon, with telescopic photo lens, right? And you'd watch the Earth, it starts complexifying, more and more complex animals, and it starts peopling. It starts producing people. In the same way that apples produce apples. We're organically related to nature. We're part of nature. We're the universe becoming conscious of itself, literally. A human being looking through a telescope is literally the universe looking at itself and just going, whoa.
Evolution Talk is written and produced by myself, Rick Coast. And if you want to help the show, the best thing that you can do is head on over to evolutiontalk.com/support. And you can also leave feedback or ideas for future shows by visiting the website. I'd love to hear from you. And more importantly, thank you for listening. And until next week, please take care of yourself.
Science is, at least in part, informed worship.
Evolution Talk is a Rick Coast production.